Hello YouTube, this is Crosscheck and welcome to 10 tips for beginners to the Mi-24 Hind. Now I came up with this list of 10 tips because these are real issues that I had while learning the Hind, and would have been great to have these tips, at least for me, when learning the Mi-24. Most of them are going to be quite basic, but very useful nonetheless. Tip number 1, and this happened twice already. So I would go and start my batteries. I'll be also turning on the network to batteries and the inverter, take the rotor brake off, and then I would come to the APU and try to start it, and nothing would happen. So tip number 1, if you start the batteries and you don't hear a voice, that's because you forgot to activate all these bad boys back here and back here. Now you hear the voice, you know you're all good. Another thing that happened to me a couple of times, sadly, is when I had both of my engines running, I would make sure on the electrics panels everything was a-okay. Turn off my APU, turn on my navigation stuff, ARC15 set to comp, SPUU power on, and then there would be this gyro, only one would be blinking, and I wouldn't be able to uncage it. Well, if we come to electric power, also we got a lot of lights that should be extinguished. So if you're facing the problem with your gyro, or you have lights not extinguishing your electric panel, well, that's because right after you turn on your engines, make sure you throttle up. Once you throttle up, you will see your electric panel will be behaving much better. Gotta reset these guys anyway. And now also you can uncage your gyros. So yeah, tip number 2, make sure you throttle up after your engine start. Tip number 3, this was a real headache for me. So when I was watching the Wags video, he just went all out and turned on all these radio navigation systems. I turn off the RWR because it's too noisy for me. But yeah, when doing this, your map is gonna behave terribly. It's probably gonna go like the opposite direction of where you really are going. So just make sure airspeed to DISS is off. No need for that. Leave that thing off. Tip number 4. For normal operation, you would turn on the yaw, roll, and pitch autopilot channels, as you can see here. Let me remove this, as you can see here. But I really recommend you not to do that when you're beginning. Keep everything off. Why? Well, it's gonna be a little bit harder to control the helicopter, yes, but you're going to understand how the helicopter behaves. And once you understand how the helicopter behaves and you turn these guys on, you're gonna be able to really see exactly what these things are doing. If you never try flying this helicopter without the autopilot assist, you are never going to fully understand how this system works. So take those off and learn to fly this thing with the autopilot channels off. Tip number 5, for a vertical takeoff, just make sure your cyclic is a little bit aft, a little bit right, rudders a little bit to the right also, and just power up. That was not exactly perfect. It is this is a complicated little machine, but as you can see, it's doable. It was not all around the place. So yeah, look at the rudder, look at the cyclic. That's basically what you're gonna be needing for a takeoff. Tip number 6, do not exceed 350 kilometers per hour. If you do, you will encounter a retreating blade stall. As this aircraft's rotors are rotating clockwise, it is the right side of the rotors that are going to stall. Therefore, your aircraft is going to roll to the right. Let's see an example of that. But before doing it, just make sure that if you encounter a retreating blade stall, what you need to do is relieve pressure from the cyclic and lower the collective. Do not increase collective and do not push more on the stick. Okay, let's go for an example. Okay, so we're pretty high now. It is a good place to try out a retreating blade stall. Our collective is fully up. We're pushing quite decently on the cyclic. We're gaining speed, 300. More pressure on the cyclic. We want to go fast, 350. Relieving forward pressure on the cyclic. Lowering collective. Regaining control. Adding collective and pressure on the cyclic as required without again exceeding 350 kilometers per hour. Another thing to keep in mind once recovering, or well, attempting to recover, your autopilot channels may fight way too hard against the stall. So maybe it would be a good idea, while regaining control, to turn the autopilot channels off and to reset your trim. Just keep that in mind. Tip number 7. To be able to use your weapons, some things on the front cockpit need to be enabled or armed for you to engage your weapons. The easiest way to do that without having to jump into the other cockpit is just open your Petrovic menu. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. I'm gonna be calling him Pedro from now on because I think that's a great name. So bring that menu up. Just if you're on doubt, show hide menu to show and hide your menu. And we are going to also go to the AI menu and bind the same button over here to hide menu, and make sure you bind menu up, right, left, and down. Now with the menu open, hold up long until it goes yellow, and now he is arming the weapons. At this point you can remove the menu, and if you set up all of your stuff correctly in the front, you should be able to start shooting. Tip number 8. Of course, go into your special menu and go into your Mi-24. Put the cockpit in English if you are an English speaker. And I would recommend setting the trimmer mode into the central position trimmer mode. This is, of course, if you have a normal joystick with springs that wants to always come back into the center. Tip number 9. Because the rotor is angled forward quite a bit, you're gonna be requiring to slow down to pitch your nose up quite a bit more than what you would really think was necessary. So don't be afraid to pitch nose up when trying to slow down. So yeah, this takes us to tip number 10. When you are slowing down and continuing a descent, let's say below 150 kilometers, just don't descend more than 5 meters per second, because if you do, you're gonna enter a vortex ring state and you're going to fall like a rock. So yeah, when descending and at low speed, do not exceed 5 meters per second in your descent rate. And those are 10 tips that I think would have helped me immensely if I had them when I was starting out with the Mi-24. Was any of these tips helpful to you? Do you think I missed some very important tips for beginners? Let me know in the comments below. And if this proved to be at least a tiny bit helpful, be sure to leave a like and a subscribe. That would be nice. Anyway, thanks for watching. Happy flying. Cross check out.